Police lights lit up my driveway as I was mid-deadlift. I thought it was a mistake until I saw Karen smiling from across the street. But what she didn't know, the men I was training weren't just clients, they were undercover agents. And what happened next shocked the entire neighborhood. The barbell hit the floor with a dull, satisfying thud. I wiped the sweat from my brow as two men in black athletic gear reset for another round. My garage had become more than a workout space. It was a place where real transformation was happening. I'd recently moved into a quiet cul-de-sac in suburban Virginia, seeking a peaceful setting after years of stress and noise. I wasn't looking to stir trouble. Just wanted to stay fit, coach a few good men, and mind my own business. But the neighborhood had its own watchdog, Karen. I noticed her on my first day, peeking through her blinds like it was part of her morning routine. Her frown never wavered, not even when I waved. "Excuse me," she said one morning, arms folded across her HOA badge tee. "Is this your house?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied, tightening the lid on a protein shake. "Moved in last week." She pointed to the men carrying resistance bands into my garage. "And them, they're clients. I run private fitness sessions." Her eyes narrowed. "It looks like some kind of facility." I laughed lightly. "It's just a garage with some equipment. Nothing commercial." That conversation was the start of something I didn't expect. The next few days, Karen took to pacing her front lawn with her phone in hand. She'd glance across the street, take notes, snap photos, and then disappear inside. One evening, after a particularly intense training session, I walked outside to get some air. Karen stood across the street, arms folded, a smug look on her face. "You got a permit for that?" she asked. "For what?" "For turning your home into a gym. The HOA doesn't allow businesses." "It's not a business. I'm not advertising or charging strangers. These are pre-approved trainees." She huffed. "You're disturbing the peace. I hear loud thuds and see strange men going in and out at all hours." I looked back at my garage. No loud music, no shouting, just disciplined workouts. Most sessions were early mornings or afternoons, always within reasonable hours. Karen wasn't satisfied. She started a petition, "Stop the underground gym." It was laughable. A few neighbors asked questions, but most shrugged it off. Some even supported me and asked for training tips. But Karen doubled down. She claimed we were lowering property values, violating zoning laws, attracting the wrong kind of people. When that didn't work, she brought up safety. What if someone gets hurt? What if one of them is dangerous? Things escalated when I began adding more equipment: sandbags, weighted vests, a few tires for flipping. Tactical conditioning. Not your average garage gym setup. But again, still legal. Still quiet. Still respectful. Karen wasn't interested in facts. She was interested in control. She left flyers on doorsteps warning people about paramilitary activity in the neighborhood. One morning, I found one on my windshield with the words, "We're watching you." Still, I kept training. The men I worked with were serious, disciplined, and discreet. But even they started noticing. "Coach," one of them whispered, "that lady across the street has been watching us for 10 minutes. "I know," I said, tightening the Velcro on his gloves. "Ignore it. We've got work to do." The tension simmered for another week. I tried to be polite, even greeted her once with a smile and a good morning, but she turned away. That Friday, just before sunset, I heard her say something that stopped me cold. "If you don't shut this place down," she muttered, loud enough for me to hear, "I'm calling the police." I stood there in silence, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the anticipation that the game was about to change. And she had no idea who she was dealing with. The next morning felt quieter than usual. There was a stillness in the air, like something brewing just below the surface. I opened the garage door to start warm-ups, but one of the guys, Mark, paused before stepping inside. "She was out there again," he said. "Karen." He nodded. "Filming from behind her mailbox this time. Not even trying to hide it." I sighed. "All right, let's keep focus. We've got work to do." The workout that day was more advanced. Loaded carries, functional drills, endurance circuits. These weren't your average fitness clients. Each of these men had a purpose behind every rep, every breath. They weren't just getting stronger. They were preparing for something bigger. The program wasn't public knowledge. I've been approved as a contractor to provide private physical conditioning to select federal trainees preparing for fieldwork. Background checks, quiet coordination, it was all legit, but not something advertised. Karen, of course, didn't know that. What she saw were men sweating, flipping tires, wearing compression gear, and hauling weighted bags through the driveway. And in her mind, it meant danger. By Wednesday, envelopes from the HOA started arriving. The first was titled Non-Compliant Use of Residential Garage. The next warned of unauthorized group gatherings. Then came violation of visual harmony standards, whatever that meant. It wasn't just paperwork. Neighbors were getting dragged into it. Karen went door to door, handing out copies of bylaws and whispering fears about unregulated training camps. She called it a safety concern. She used words like untraceable guests, unlicensed facility, and even militia-like behavior. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. One afternoon, I caught Karen crouched behind a bush, filming a new member arriving. The guy parked, opened his trunk, and as he reached in, part of his gear slipped into view. Tactical boots and a weight vest with a patch on it. Karen gasped audibly. I heard it from across the yard. She was already dialing. Don't do it, I muttered under my breath. She did it. Later that evening, a neighborhood flyer appeared, this time printed in full color, bold font at the top. Emergency HOA safety meeting, urgent concern at 1782 Red Oak Court, my address. She stapled it to every mailbox pole, handed it out at the corner gas station, and posted it to the local online forum with phrases like unidentified individuals, paramilitary drills, and strange vehicles arriving at night. Of course, none of this was true. But fear spreads fast. At the meeting, I wasn't invited, but I still showed up. The clubhouse was packed. Karen stood at the front with a stack of photos and a laser pointer like she was giving a security briefing. On the whiteboard behind her was the word suspicious activity. I stood in the back, arms crossed. I've documented over 12 individuals entering that garage over the past 2 weeks, she said, flipping slides. Some of them wear unmarked gear. There's lifting, running drills, flipping tires. It's loud. It's disruptive. And we don't know who these people are. Someone raised a hand. Are they doing anything illegal? Karen hesitated. Well, not technically, but it's threatening. Look at this. She pointed at a blurry image of a man lifting sandbags. Another voice from the back. That's called exercise. Laughter broke out, but Karen pushed on. If the HOA won't act, I'll escalate it myself. I've already made a report. Whispers rippled across the room. I quietly stepped out. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A neighbor messaged me, Karen, call the cops. They might come by tomorrow. I stared at my garage. We were scheduled for a full mobility and strength circuit. I considered canceling, but then I thought, why should I? We've broken no rules. Everything was within legal rights. Let them come. The next day, training went on as usual. Midway through the workout, I noticed Karen standing in her driveway with a coffee cup, eyes locked on us. She wasn't smiling this time. She was just waiting. And then it happened. Red and blue lights flashed against the garage door as a cruiser rolled slowly up the street. 2 officers stepped out. Calm but direct. Karen's smirk returned. My guys paused mid-set. I stepped forward, hands steady, a voice calm. Officers, I said, can I help you? They looked over my shoulder, then back at me. We've received a report of suspicious activity taking place in this garage. Mind if we have a quick word? I nodded. Of course. Step right in. They followed me into the garage, and the air shifted. They weren't ready for what came next. The officers stepped into the garage and paused. It wasn't what they expected. There were no flashing lights or blasting music. No shouting or chaos. Just 4 men mid-workout, focused, breathing hard, moving with precision. Kettlebells lined the wall. Weighted vest hung on a rack. The floor was clean. The air smelled like rubber and effort. One of the officers, Officer Ramirez, scanned the room. His partner, Officer Jennings, took a slow step toward the bench press. So Ramirez said, we've had a call from a concerned neighbor about. He checked his notepad, military-style training happening in this residence. I raised an eyebrow. Is that illegal? He smirked. No, sir. It's not. Then what exactly is the problem? Jennings shifted his weight. We're just here to verify. Make sure everything's safe, no disturbances, no unauthorized activity. One of my trainees stepped forward. His name was Damon. Short hair, calm face, lean frame, but an unmistakable presence. I can help with that, he said, reaching slowly into his pocket. Ramirez tensed for a moment until Damon produced a slim leather case and flipped it open. The badge inside gleamed under the garage lights. Jennings leaned in. His eyes narrowed. "You're with?" "Federal agency," Damon said. "Field training unit. All activity on this property is part of a physical readiness program approved under federal guidelines. This man," he nodded toward me, "is a licensed civilian contractor working under security clearance." The second trainee stepped forward. "We're not just here to get in shape. We're here to pass qualification. Every second of this program is logged, reviewed, and cleared." The silence hung in the air like a weight. The officers stood frozen for a beat. Then Ramirez exhaled slowly. "Well," he said, "that explains a lot." Jennings nodded. "We didn't know." "You weren't supposed to," I said. "But I have nothing to hide. You're welcome to confirm everything through proper channels." They stepped aside, visibly relieved. The tension that had come in with them started to melt away. Ramirez smiled faintly. I thought this didn't feel like a backyard boot camp." As they turned to leave, a voice pierced through the still air. "Officers," Karen called out from across the street. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Jennings and Ramirez looked at each other. They walked straight across the lawn. Karen stood on her porch, arms folded, looking proud of herself. "I told you," she said. "I told you there was something strange happening." "Did you get their names? Are they registered?" Jennings took a step forward. "Ma'am, we spoke with a homeowner and his guests. Everything checks out." Karen blinked. "What? But they have military bags and they—" Ramirez cut her off gently. "They are operating under federal authorization. You filed a report of suspicious behavior, but what you described is fully lawful and protected." Karen opened her mouth to argue again. "Also," Ramirez added, "just for your awareness, falsely reporting or interfering with federal training operations can carry legal consequences." Karen's smile vanished. Her expression twisted. "I was only trying to protect the neighborhood." Jennings remained calm. "And we appreciate when residents stay alert. But this situation is handled. Let's not make assumptions moving forward." They left her standing on the porch, stunned, speechless. Back in the garage, the guys resumed their session. No one said much, but there was a new energy, like a weight had been lifted that was an iron. Later that night, I walked outside just to clear my head. The stars were out. The neighborhood was quiet again. Karen's house was dark. No blinds twitching. No shadows at the window. But I knew this wasn't over. She'd pushed too hard, and she wasn't the type to give up after one failed report. I leaned on the mailbox for a moment, trying to collect my thoughts. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Damon. "Command's been notified. They may want to speak with you directly. Expect a formal letter." I stared at the screen. Formal letter? I wasn't expecting anything official. I was just doing my job. The message ended with 2 words, "Keep steady." The next morning, something was wedged in my mailbox. A plain envelope with no return address. On the front, one line. "Confidential, for contractor use only." I didn't open it right away. I just stood there, knowing something had shifted. Karen had stirred up something bigger than she understood, and she had no idea what was coming next. I carried the sealed envelope into the house, set it on the kitchen counter, and just stared at it. For a few moments, I didn't move. I had worked hard to keep everything quiet, legit, respectful, under the radar. But now it seemed the ripples Karen had created had reached higher levels. And the fact that they responded this quickly meant one thing. Someone was watching the situation more closely than I'd thought. I finally peeled it open. Inside was a single sheet. No letterhead. No signature. Just a message in clean block print. Effective immediately, cease all outdoor-facing activity. Maintain operational discretion. Situation has escalated. Surveillance assets will be deployed. Do not engage. Command. I folded the paper slowly, slid it back into the envelope, and locked it in my desk drawer. The next training session was canceled. I told the guys to take the day off. Most didn't ask questions. A few gave me nods. They knew what this meant. Karen's accusations had done more than annoy us. They had triggered visibility, higher level visibility, and that meant changes were coming. The quiet of the next few days was unsettling. The garage stayed shut. My driveway stayed empty. Karen, surprisingly, didn't gloat. She seemed cautious now, stepping outside only briefly, glancing across the street without the usual boldness. She knew something had shifted, but she didn't know what. Neither did I fully. On the third day, an unmarked black SUV parked 2 houses down. A man stepped out, mid-40s, clean-shaven, dark slacks, no badge, no logo. He paced casually, hands in pockets, taking in the neighborhood. Then he stopped in front of Karen's house. I watched from my window. She came out a moment later, holding a small dog and wearing her usual HOA logo sweater. They spoke. I couldn't hear a word, but I didn't need to. Her face changed, smile, confusion, narrowed eyes, and finally, tight-lipped silence. The man gave her a nod, turned, and walked away. By the time I stepped outside, the SUV was gone. That evening, another message arrived. This one was digital, encrypted, routed through the secure platform I used during initial contract onboarding. Compliance confirmed. Civilian party has been briefed. Monitoring will continue. Resume activities with discretion. I exhaled. Training could resume, but not at full volume. Not yet. The next morning, I reopened the garage. Only 3 trainees arrived. Damon, Mark, and another agent named Eli. We kept it simple. No equipment out on the driveway. No noise. Just tactical conditioning and silent drills inside. But despite the careful return, Karen wasn't finished. 2 days later, she posted a long message on the local community board. Some of you may think this is over. It is not. When people start acting like they're above the rules, the rest of us pay the price. We still don't know who these men are. We still don't know what's being taught in that garage. It was a warning shot dressed up as a neighborhood alert. And it worked. People started talking again. Whispers at mailboxes. More HOA letters, this time vaguely worded about resumed disturbances. One neighbor, a father of 2, came by with concern in his eyes. "Look," he said, "I've got nothing against workouts or whatever you're doing, but can you just explain it to the neighborhood? Let folks know it's not something dangerous." "I wish I could," I said truthfully, "but I'm not allowed to disclose certain things. What I can tell you is that it's completely legal and fully cleared." He nodded slowly, but didn't seem reassured. I understood his worry. Fear of the unknown is powerful. But I couldn't tell them what I really did. Not yet. That night, while locking up the garage, I heard footsteps. Karen was standing at the edge of her yard. She didn't say anything for a moment. Just stared. "You think you've won," she finally said. I met her gaze. Calm, firm. There was nothing to win. She took a step forward. "You think those badges and suits scare me?" I shook my head. "No. But the truth should." Karen clenched her jaw, then turned and walked away. I knew then that the next move wouldn't be loud. It would be subtle. Maybe legal. Maybe something aimed at getting me removed completely. She'd already played the police card. The OA card. She was running out of options. But I knew one thing. The truth always rises. And she was about to learn that in a way she never expected. I woke up early the next morning, expecting another quiet day of damage control. The garage was locked, the equipment inside neatly organized, and the calendar had no official training scheduled. But that calm didn't last. Around 9 a.m., a black government vehicle rolled into the neighborhood and parked directly in front of my driveway. It wasn't the same SUV from earlier. This one had tinted windows and bore the subtle markings of a federal transport unit. My phone buzzed almost instantly. "Be ready. Visitor inbound." Let it play out. The door opened, and out stepped a woman in a dark blue blazer, clipped badge on her waist. She was followed by 2 other agents, both clean-cut, professional, and carrying plain folders. Karen appeared on her porch as if summoned by instinct. She froze when she saw the agents, gripping the rail of her steps. The lead agent walked straight toward my house. I met her at the door. "Are you the contracted fitness operator at this residence?" she asked clearly. Yes, ma'am. You must be the liaison from command. She offered a small smile. Correct. Mind if we speak inside? I led them into the garage. Inside, the agent flipped open her folder and spoke in a crisp, clear voice. Per authorization of Directive 8B under Internal Federal Operations, we're formally recognizing this site as an active contractor training zone. Surveillance has confirmed your full compliance, and your operation remains protected under confidentiality protocols. She paused and glanced toward the street. However, she continued, recent civilian interference has raised visibility. That is not your fault, but we intend to resolve it permanently. I nodded slowly. How? She looked toward the door. By letting them see just enough. 15 minutes later, we opened the garage door. Karen stood at the edge of her driveway, clearly unable to help herself. The agent stood behind me, calm, composed, documents in hand. Then one of them addressed her directly. Ma'am, he said, we'd like to formally inform you that this residence has been operating under federal authorization. The individuals you filmed and reported are cleared trainees in a lawful capacity. Karen blinked hard. So, I was right? You're conducting secret military training. No, he said simply. You were wrong. Her face fell. This is not military, he continued. This is tactical physical conditioning for federal field agents. All participants are undergoing standardized physical evaluations to prepare for law enforcement service. No weapons. No combat drills. Nothing illegal or dangerous. She opened her mouth, but he raised a hand gently. We also need to advise you that repeated interference, false reporting, or defamation of authorized government activity can result in investigation. You are not under any charges at this time, but we strongly recommend you cease further involvement. The silence was crushing. Karen's face turned red. She looked between the agents, then at me, then back again. But I was just protecting the community. The lead agent stepped forward. By spreading fear and misinformation, Karen couldn't answer. The agents handed her a printed letter, formal language confirming the legitimacy of my role and the government's full support. Then, without another word, they turned, stepped into their vehicle, and drove away. She stood there, letter trembling in her hands. The neighborhood watched from behind curtains and porches, and slowly I saw it happen. Her power began to vanish. Not with yelling, not with revenge, but with the truth stated plainly, backed by those she could no longer fight. Over the next few days, everything changed. No more flyers, no more posts, no more surprise photos from behind hedges. Even the HOA sent a quiet retraction of all formal complaints against my property, citing confirmed permissions beyond standard community authority. Some neighbors started waving again. One even stopped by to apologize. I didn't know it was that serious, he said. Honestly, thank you. For whatever it is you do. I just nodded. Karen, meanwhile, kept her distance. Her porch stayed empty. Her blinds remained closed. Whatever energy she had once put into policing the block had burned out completely. In my garage, it kept operating. Quietly, efficiently, exactly the way it was designed to. Not everyone needs to know the full story. They just need to know they were wrong. And sometimes that's more powerful than anything you can say.